On that, it's real hard to have this conversation with uniqueness and tone without talking about the late Ken Parker, which is a very tough situation for me. I almost can't speak about it. There was a video of him recently passing the torch, and I could not watch it. It took me 5 tries to get through that. He was unique, and he was a luthier's a luthier. You can say you're original and you can fly your flag, but then you go stand next to Ken Parker, and he just fucking banged it out, you know. And you looked at it, you go, "Wow, is it okay if I swear?" I hope it is, because that's the way it was. Everything that he did was for a reason, for a purpose. It was him. He came from
very intentional,
extremely well had purpose. It had meaningful. It was meaningful. And it had purpose, and his guitars did sound great. But when you were looking at one of Ken's instruments, you were looking at him, his personality. I mean, talk about a fella that would laugh from his gut and made you feel good to be around him. And I saw him many times inspiring luthiers, not making them feel, not belittling them. And even though he had mountains of expertise and experience behind him, it was just a testament to him.
He never gave off the master vibe. He never gave off the, you need to kiss the ring. You never had to kiss Ken's ring. And I got to be honest, I don't mean to talk shit about other people. I don't mean that. And I don't mean there's people who actually ask you to kiss the ring, but there's definitely bravado that's given by a number of people. But hey, I've accomplished something. And there's none of that was there with him at all. The last time I saw him was at the last Woodstock show. We had a few phone conversations after that. But here he is, well mastered, extremely well accomplished. And it was like, "Jamie, I got this thing I want you to play. When you have a minute, can you come over and play it?" And he was just as excited as he might have been 40 years ago. And he had brought his original prototype of the Fly, the super thin carbon fiber that had basically almost had no body. And he took me into the back corner away from everyone else. "Just play it. Tell me what you think." And then I sat and played it. And it's not that I'm a masterful musician, but he genuinely just wanted to sit and hear guitar also and have you play it. And he's like, "Oh, I love that." He's like, "Yeah, do that funky thing again." And he'll ask you to repeat something. He's like, "Yeah, play that again." Like, "Okay, I'll play that again,
Yeah.
And there was he was in it. He was legitimately in it all the time, like authentically.
Yeah,
and the outcry from our community has been substantial.
Well, when I zip along social media and I try to stay clear of a lot of stuff, but again, even seeing that, it'll take me months to be able to go back and read all of that.
Yeah.
Not just because of the volume of it, just because when I read it, I have a memory. In 2017, Ken called up. He said, "You going to be at Woodstock?" And I go, "Yeah." He said, "Man, do you have a room for Ian and I?" His buddy he always traveled with. And I go, "Yeah." And it was Ken Parker and his buddy. And it was Sam Goodry and Joyce and Linda Manzer. And we all shared a house. And every day Ken got up and made pastries. I woke up every day to a cup of coffee and fresh pastries made by Ken Parker. And that's the best ending memory that I could ask for. We sat around and we talked about cars. And, they're not pastries. They're like Dutch babies. I don't know what they were, but they were good. But that was a great weekend. Talking about his accomplishments, or his history, or his portfolio, would be better off to say. There was a fellow there who was testing Ken, but didn't know who Ken was, because Ken, if you saw him, you wouldn't really put it together. And this guy was getting into production, he was a little preachy. And then when Ken walked away with a smile, politely, whatever's going on, going to talk to somebody. And I leaned over to him. I said, "You do realize that he comes from a history of making guitars in a factory setting. The Parker Fly was a very successful instrument." And he goes, "You mean those guitars?" I go, "Yeah, Adrian Ballou, Joni Mitchell.
The unlikely Joni Mitchell.
And that's just touching it. The first time I played a Parker Fly, probably through a Barkus Berry, it was set up. And Ken was there, but his partner was there. It was in Burlington, Vermont, when one of the Asia shows was up there. And I played that guitar for hours, and I go, man, this thing is just so versatile. And it's light, and it's fun, and it's unique. It's not that I wasn't in a mindset where I didn't want to like it. It just wasn't my Stratocaster.
Yeah.
So it intimidated me and scared me, and I was pretty young to the whole thing. But no, it was a well thought out musical instrument. It's
probably the first truly remarkable guitar that I remember. So I'm a few years younger than you are. And I grew up on the next generation of guitar players. So I come in more around Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads and the folks with the hard rock metal scene, like Iron Maiden and Ozzy Osbourne and folks. That's what caught me on guitar. And so when I started going to guitar stores, I was there going to see Jacksons and Charvels and Ibanez, ESP, that kind of guitar. And I remember one day, one of the guys who owned one of those guitar shops that had all that stuff said, "Oh, you got to check this thing out." And of course, the first thing everyone did is they picked it up and they put it in your hands because it was lighter than any other guitar that had existed. Right?
It's a spruce covered in carbon fiber.
Yeah, and we were all like, "Whoa, what is this?" You know, like we were all shocked. And he sat me down and played, and the piezo pickups, that the stereo output, and the humbuckers, and I was like, "That's the guitar I want." I couldn't afford that guitar. I've never actually owned one, and I didn't remember this, but my wife, Roberta, and I were at an artisan show, maybe even the show where you and I met. But Ken stopped me in the aisle and just sort of said, "Hey, Jamie, how's it going? How's the tour going?" and all that. And we just had a little brief interaction, maybe 2 minutes, and we walked away. And Roberta didn't know we knew each other. She said, "That was Ken Parker." I said, "Yeah." She's like, "He knows your name." I'm like, "Yeah?" It's like, "When I met you, you had a laminated picture of a Parker Fly in your wall." And I said, "I did? Oh, you're right, I did. I had completely forgotten." And she was like starstruck somehow. She was geeking out, which is weird because we've spent decades with guitar makers, so I didn't understand why she was acting that way.
Yeah.
Right? And she brought me back into, like 16-year-old Jamie or 15-year-old Jamie who, had like a dream board of a Parker Fly. That was probably the first guitar that I would say absolutely aligns with my work that I do today. Is probably that Parker Fly, yeah.
It's a great testament to resilience within the industry and sticking to it and growing, where one day you realize that you've become meaningful friends with people that you truly admire. Mm-hmm. And you will continue to admire them. In other words, they've taken you into the fold. Yeah. Maybe it's just raw real estate, just continued effort, whatever that is. Yeah. But those are great moments.
Yeah. But let's face it, though. I mean, as a tribute to Ken, there will be many guitar makers that have influenced us. But there is maybe, I don't know if there's 6. There's a handful of guitar makers that are so influential that every other guitar maker in the world has a different level of respect for those guitar makers. And Ken was on that very short list. And there have been testimony after testimony this week. I was surprised to see a posting from Sheldon Dingwall. Not surprised that he made a post, but to say, "I play my Parker Fly every single day." I didn't know that about him. I didn't know that he played a Parker Fly every day. I know he's a guitar player, not a bass player. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know he played a Parker Fly every day. Mm-hmm. And so, here's someone else who's made a substantial contribution to the industry who was like, "Yeah, that Parker is actually my guitar that I play all the time."
I was at a nothing guitar kind of event, not very far from here, and I shouldn't say nothing because it really was pretty cool, where it was a show for luthiers, and when they were done showing the guitars, we took our guitars into a room and we played them for the audience. It was a neat concept, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And there was a violin maker there, more a fiddle maker actually, Elin Howe, a great guy, and his son was there. And in the middle of nowhere at this event was his son, and it was a dead knockoff of a Ken Parker. And I looked at it and I smiled from ear to ear. I immediately took a picture and sent it to Ken. Of course, he's gracious, He's not going to say, "Oh, he's copying me.
No. He didn't want anyone's blood. He just wanted his pound of flesh on it.
No,
he was just
he was flattered. Saying that is in the recent post, because it's still fresh. I mean, we're talking, it's 5 days old.
Yeah.
How many Parker Fly influenced instruments pop up? And it's not a few.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen all of it yet.
No, there'll be more for sure. We have a guitar on this tour made by Michael Sankey called the Electric Feather, which is not, it doesn't look like a Fly, but behind the scenes, it's a suspended archtop on a truss system. And that suspended archtop was inspired by Mike playing that same Fly prototype that I just told you about a few minutes ago at the Woodstock show. The same show that Ken asked me to play, Mike was at the show and played that same thing. And he didn't make it's definitely his own instrument. It's not a Parker, it's a Sankey. But it was inspired for sure off that work. You know, I spent Sunday with John Monteleone, interviewing John in his workshop in Long Island, doing one of these interviews. And we left there and went to a grocery store. And standing in the checkout line, a little bit long, so I did what we all do. I pulled up my phone for a second and checked my Instagram. And that's when I saw the post and went, oh, shit. And yeah, I couldn't hold it together. I left to the RV and
I was by myself when I had the news. Well, I'm an empty nester now.
yes,
So I'm by myself all the time, me and the cat.
yeah,
But I got the news. I just sat there, and of course, it didn't surprise me because I knew what was going on.
yeah,
And Ken, in the class person that he was, didn't want anybody to know about his suffering up until toward the very end. But I kind of got bits and pieces through other people.
yeah.
But it didn't make it any easier.
No, I did know. We had a scheduled interview, and he got on the call and said, "There's something wrong with my voice. I've never had laryngitis before, but I might have laryngitis." That was maybe 60 or 90 days ago, and I said, I didn't know the full extent, and he didn't communicate that. And I said, if it's just like laryngitis or whatever, how about I'll contact you next week and we'll see if your voice is better, because this will be a permanent record and we'll see how it goes. And then we never rescheduled at that point in time. But, it was an interesting symmetry for me to have spent the morning with John and then to find that out in the afternoon because, those are probably the two most influential art shop makers of our time, I think.
Benedetto, but John Monteleone.
I like Benedetto's work, don't get me wrong. He didn't change the way we view, it didn't change the way I view archtop anyways. I think he makes a really great archtop, don't get me wrong.
That's what I was about to say.
Ken redefines that, and even Monteleone redefines that. I played John's very first archtop. He has it there in his office, and it's an archtop. It archtops, it does everything you expect it to do. But then he evolved into something else. And his archtop guitars have extreme dynamics and fidelity that is not associated with that mid-range punch that you get from the traditional archtop, and that the archtop players want. That jazzer archtop, that is not what John is building. John is building something that has fidelity much closer to a flat top guitar, but still is an archtop guitar, and that's really interesting. And so it's not to minimize the great quality of work that other archtop makers do, but to me, John's work has a separate sort of subcategory, and Ken's work has an even, almost an alien subcategory for the archtop.
I had a word that was banging around. Alien probably is more appropriate.
Yeah, you might grab a Parker archtop and pick it up for the first time and go, has this person even seen an F5 or a DeQuisto or something of the sort? And of course he worked on a ton of them. But the point is, it's so much of a departure, that it's like picking up a Teufel guitar or a Matsuda guitar. Sometimes you pick up those guitars and go, where did this come from? Like the most experienced luthiers go, how did you think of this? Yeah,
what were you thinking?
Yeah.
When you did that, what were you thinking?
What mushrooms did you have in your when this thing happened?
But it's great when you see that. Not only do those type of luthiers think outside of the box, the box wasn't even in the county, when they're making that. They're just, it was just free thinking. When I think of a Parker Fly, there's a lot of things that cross my mind. The exoskeleton concept and light and definitely that cool design. And I don't know, it's not mid-century modern. I don't know what it is, but it's very cool. It definitely has its characteristics. But did you know that the truss rod in those guitars were a guitar string?
Yes.
And not many people know that. Think about it, the guitar was so well designed and engineered that there's no carriage bolt in there. There's no double action truss rod. It's a guitar string. And I think it's like a plain steel 15,000 string. That's all it takes to give it the minor adjustment that it needs. I mean, there's a tension issue. To make it worthy throughout humidity changes.
Yeah.
But the whole guitar is encapsulated in carbon.
Yes.
But I don't, Ken, how'd you think of that? What would, everybody else, that's going to break. Ken goes, no, that's going to work. Let's just do this.
Yeah. If you're, and that's exactly it. So there's knowledge and there's understanding. And knowledge can help you say, I'm going to choose the right truss rod for this. Understanding can say, well, this has a resistance of this, and truss rods are a bit big, a bit heavy. I'm trying to reduce the weight on this thing. What does it really take to just put that resistance in place? That's understanding. And he understood it, and understood the materials to sort of say, no, it's just going to need this. It probably only took a 10,000s, but he put in the 15 instead.
It was small.
Like overdid it, right? So that it could last over a long period of time. And, strings have some level of stretch and give over time too, right? So you got to do something.
He understood the boundaries of the engineered properties of whatever he was working on. And it's just not guitars. He's a killer machinist. His shop probably...
You're a machinist.
I'm a trained tool and die maker.
Yeah.
And so Ken and I had a connection there, but he stayed with it. And he stayed with it in a more organic way. I was trained in a very rough, tough shop. They took no prisoners, but we were working for customers like Ford and Chevy and Chrysler, Dodge. So that was high speed, low drag, let's say. But Ken, his use of his abilities to be a machinist came from a different spirit. Joe Glazier has that too. There's no doubt about it. Dan Earlywine also has it, but Ken did some pretty cool stuff. And he's also a guy that, let's say, we were at that cottage I was talking about in Woodstock, and I think it was 2018. I'm not sure when it was. Wasn't the last one. And they had upgraded me to some convertible sports car. And he goes, oh, you got one of those? And we went and popped the hood, and he sat there and told me about that entire engine. And he was right. He says, this car has a titanium chassis. It has this. It has this. I can't compete with that.
I wouldn't even try. That's where you check the oil. That's what Jamie knows.
No, that's where someone else checks the oil. Linda Manzer was standing there. She took a picture of us both. And I'll send you that picture. Both of us leaning over the hood, and she was back there shaking her head. She goes, boys, boys, boys.
Yeah.
Will be boys.
Well, she is an interesting two vehicles. Last time I saw her car, she was driving a Subaru, I think, in her driveway.
Yeah.
But she also has an old, you got to know how to fix something VW van, right? You can't drive those things if you don't know how to do something to your carburetor or does anyone own a VW van they don't have to fix en route?
Yeah, well, I've had Volkswagens before.
Right. So she doesn't fix anything to do with the cars?
I don't know.
Or she was just enjoying saying boys, boys, boys.
That's probably knowing her and knowing how much she's into, knowing how sentimental she is and how much she is in tradition and how deeply, she feels things. That's probably her first vehicle. It's just not going anywhere, or it's right in there. She's had it for a long time. I'm
maybe.
guess.
She, I think she did this big. The only reason I knew, even if she had it, she had made some posting because she drove it across America to see like the big Joni Mitchell show that Brandi Carlile sat on stage and sang with Joni, I think probably to help make sure that all her parts were covered, because she's fairly along the way at this point in time, Joni Mitchell. And there was definitely that spirit of her youth, like, hey, I'm driving my Volkswagen across America to see Joni Mitchell, you know.
Ken Parker was there too. I just saw a posting on that recently, and it's that show, and Linda met up with Ken, I'm not making this up. I'm just piecing this together.
Am I remembering that she stopped in to see you on the way across America?
Yeah, but she stopped in a couple times on trips. Sometimes with Peggy, sometimes by herself.
Yeah.
But if you research that a little bit, there's a great picture of Ken and Joni Mitchell sitting there. No, that's not many years ago.
No, it's like in the last couple of years. It's not very long ago at all.
And I look at that and I go, right, there's the epitome of that. You know, look at that. Just two old friends hanging out.
Yeah. And for me, someone who loves the sort of unwritten future of guitar, seeing Joni Mitchell playing a Parker Fly is exactly what I love. It's the evidence of, here's someone who's a great musician, who's made a huge influence on the world through Joni's music, with some of the best musicians in the world that have been a part of her band and that she's been influenced them as well. And there was just a point where she was like, no, this thing's got that piezo pickup, and I'm going to play this very modern looking guitar for someone who people try and put in a box as that folk singer, you know. And it was so weird in the 90s to see there's Joni Mitchell with this guitar, and I love that. I love that.
One of the best pictures of Joni, one of the best Parker Fly promotional pictures is Joni Mitchell standing there and she's smiling. She's got her legs separated out. She's got that Parker Fly, you know. She's probably doing some groovy dance. It was caught at the perfect moment. But I go, man, I wish it was my guitar she was doing that.
Yeah.